that a heart transplant would definitely not kill the patient? I'm not sure, actually. So that's the problem that we're running into with head transplants. A surgeon now is planning the first human head transplant for the year 2017. It's worth noting that this is being funded by a very, very rich person who is probably afraid of becoming obsolete himself. So he's very much looking forward to the idea of a head transplant so he can get one for himself and not be obsolete himself, because that's something that we're all kind of worried about. Heaven knows I could use a new body. It's one of those things where, if you have the option, let's say that it's 30, 40 years down the line, and you've got the option in your old age to get yourself a new body, would you take that option? And if you had the money, let's assume that in 30 years, it's actually both medically possible and medically affordable. Would you take that? I'm leaning towards no, honestly, because one, I know that this one works pretty well. If it stops working, it's probably my fault. Working in the radio business, it's a more dangerous business than you'd think. Radio is surprisingly dangerous because you're constantly being bombarded with radiation. Everyone in the radio business is bald. It's just a matter of unfortunate fact. If you, mostly because of stress, honestly. But if you go out to a transmitter site, you're being bombarded with radiation. You run a high risk of being shot by someone who doesn't appreciate your views. The radio business can actually be kind of dangerous, believe it or not. And if I were to be shot by an angry protester who's upset that I would have voted for Ron Paul back in 2008, would I opt to get a new body? Maybe, actually, in that case. I think I would deserve one. But looking at what the Extreme Tech article says, modern medical technology has granted doctors the ability to transplant many of the body's organs, extending the life of people suffering from chronic diseases. A very good friend of mine needs a new kidney, or is going to need a new kidney soon. So I'm very aware, although not as aware as him, very aware of the need for new organs. And there certainly is a deficit of people who are willing to give their organs to charity or to humanity, to other people. But the article says that, but what about replacing all of the organs at once, along with the body in which they are encased? That's science fiction right now, but Italian neurosurgeon Sergio Canavero says that he plans to do the very first human head transplant next year. This is not the first time he's made this claim, but now he's got a volunteer lined up and has explained in more detail how he thinks the procedure will go. If it sounds suspicious, there's a good reason. There's plenty of reason to be skeptical because, again, a human head transplant has never been successfully done. In fact, as far as we know, a head transplant in animals has never been successfully done. I watched a documentary about this not too long ago. I believe it was Vice that did it, which makes it a little bit sketchy, but I believe it was Vice magazine that did this article about head transplant in monkeys. It was a neurosurgeon who actually did take a monkey's head, take it off, put it onto a new monkey body, put it on, and the monkey was living for a short period of time before they euthanized it. The problem was the monkey did not have proper connection in the spinal cord. Now that's what runs your body. I'm moving and jiving to describe this. If you don't have an operable spinal cord, you ain't moving nowhere, to put it in Southern terms. You ain't moving nowhere, because without a spinal cord, your brain is not sending the electrical signals down to your body. That's what makes your muscles expand and contract. Your muscles are essentially just expanders and contractors, mostly contractors, and that's what they do. It pumps blood to your hands, to your feet, to your shoulders, to your biceps if you have them, to your pectorals if you have them. I don't. I'm mostly just skin and bone in there. But we all need these electrical signals to move about. Now, there have been medical advancements in attaching spinal or neuro tissue together. There's this neuro glue they've been working on that I think has like chlorophyll, believe it or not, plant samples that they use that glues it together. And if it works, there could be an actual viable head transplant by the year 2017. That's a weird concept, I know, but it could happen. According to Canavero, the donor body will come from someone who is brain dead and whose organs would be considered acceptable for transplantation. So it could be someone who's fallen into a coma because of a traumatic head injury, but otherwise their body is fine, that kind of thing. Now, there are a lot of moral questions about, is this an okay thing to do? Probably not. I'm kind of on the fence about a whole body transplant thing. That seems a little bit nefarious to me. It seems a little bit, morally not right. It seems like if you are damaged to the point where you need a new body, maybe you were supposed to die anyway. I mean, just saying, but then again, there's the technological ability. Are we playing around with God's want to take life, or are we simply playing into God's will for us to be able to use the ability He's given us to heal? To put it in a Christian perspective, it's difficult. Do we know? I don't. I have to talk to a lot of people who are way smarter about this than I am. But according to Canavero, the donor body will be taken from someone who is brain dead. Things get wild when Canavero explains the process of disposing of the old body. The patient will be cooled down in order to slow damage to the brain cells. This is called cryogenics. Believe it or not, you're cryogenically frozen to a certain extent. You're more cryogenically refrigerated. It slows the blood flow and it slows neurological function slow enough that your body can be transplanted. Then being able to surgically remove the head in orderly fashion should allow surgeons to then reattach all nerves and blood vessels to the new body once that pesky donor head is removed. And of course, they could always attach the head with the blood flow and with the esophagus and everything, and then worry about the spinal cord a little bit later. The image which goes with this, by the way, is very funny. It shows just a head detached from the body, and it looks a little bit, eerie. I'm showing it to the cameras on Facebook and on YouTube. It's just a head which is sort of ceremoniously detached from the body, like a coronation or something, which I guess it kind of is. The FCC has gotten upset about, well, how can I put this in radio-friendly terms? Because we are governed by the FCC. Extraneous male parts, we'll say, flopping around on television. Flip-flopping is the phrase they used during the Olympics. NBC's production of the 2016 Summer Olympics was broadly panned by media critics, but what problems did the average viewer have with the network's semi-annual sports showcase? Well, a Freedom of Information Act, which was filed by The Verge magazine and newspaper and, a website now, says that it's actually sexual indecency, which many viewers of the Olympics were upset about. The issue of NBC failing to properly handle closed captioning is also another big problem, but the complaints are mostly technical. And, of course, you had a lot of people complaining about the technicalities and too many ads. That was a big problem, too many ads. Now, I will hand it to whoever made the ads on the Olympics. The ads did play in with the entertainment. I will say most of the advertisements which I saw on the Olympics were actually pretty entertaining. It's kind of like the Super Bowl, where you can watch the Super Bowl and the ads are rather entertaining. That's kind of how I felt with the Olympics. The funny thing is, though, a lot of the complaints are about indecency during the Olympics, but you have to understand, we're talking about swimming events, right? Where aerodynamics, or I guess water dynamics, however that works, are supposed to be absolutely maximized, meaning your swimsuits must be as skin tight as possible. And unfortunately, that means you have to see a little bit of skin, actually most of their skin. You're seeing a majority of their skin, like 85% of the skin of the person you are watching, which means it's going to be a little bit exposed. And I hope anyway, most people who watch the Olympics understand that. You're going to watch a swimming event and you're going to see some detail, put it that way. You're going to see a lot of detail. I will say I'm very happy. I don't know if happy is the right word, but I'm very pleased, maybe proud, I guess, of the U.S. Female volleyball team, beach volleyball team. I've always been a very big fan of the volleyball team, by the way. It's always been a very interesting thing to me. I love beach volleyball, not because of the ladies, although that is an interesting factor. No, because I actually truly enjoy beach volleyball. I think it's a great sport. But I noticed the uniforms they were wearing were very decent, I guess. They can wear whatever they want, but I thought it was interesting that, they don't feel the need to put themselves on display. It's about athleticism. It's not about how pretty they are. And they are very pretty ladies, and they know that. But I thought that was very interesting detail that they decided to put in there. Ars Seneca has an interesting article here about Tor. If you're not familiar with Tor, it's called the Onion Router. That's what Tor stands for. It is an acronym, as are most everything else on the internet. Pretty much everything is an acronym in one way or another, and that's just how the internet works. For instance, did you know that .com means .commercial? A lot of people know that, but that's what .com means. It's .commercial. Way back when the naming schemes were being thought of in, I think, the early 70s, .com was designated for .commercial. There was .gov for governments, and there was .mil for military. And those were the three designated. They're called high-level domains. So you had government, military, and commercial. And that's it. It was very simple. Well, now there's been a huge expansion thanks to ICANN, which is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, if I'm remembering correctly. And they have expanded it has expanded the amount of high-level usernames high-level domain names to thousands and thousands and thousands. Now there's .bicycle. That's a real one. There's .wed for weddings. There's .biz, of course, that came out around 2000. There's pretty much anything you could want. I have a .party domain name, by the way. I actually do own a .party domain name, and it cost me, I think, about 50 cents to register. It's so cheap, it's ridiculous. But I'm going to put on my my business card one of these days, russell.party, or russell@russell.party is my email address. One of these days I'll do that, and it'll be pretty fun. I'll run an email server out of the office here because private contractor fun, all that good stuff. But there's a darker side of the internet, or at least a different side of the internet that's not on the World Wide Web. It's called Tor. Tor is the onion router. And Tor is where your internet communications are bounced off of a bunch of different encrypted computers called nodes to your end goal. So let's say I want to connect to a computer. I want to connect to this particular website. It's not just my computer connecting to that website as it would be in the normal World Wide Web. Instead, it's my computer connects to one in the Czech Republic. Then it connects to one in Slovakia. Then it connects to a node in Poland. And then it connects to a node in the UK. And then it connects to a node in France. And then it connects to its end destination, which is the website which I want to get, that Tor website. So, or hidden service, as it's usually called. So that's all very, very isolated. It's very difficult to crack, but the FBI managed to do it. The FBI managed to hack into Tor using, let's say, less than legal methods. The FBI is known to use less than legal methods for just about everything, be it obtaining phone records, be it obtaining search warrants when they actually get search warrants, which is very rare, be it when they shoot somebody, it's usually illegal. There's a lot of different things that go on that the FBI does, which are a little bit illegal to very, very illegal. And in this case, a judge says that Tor obtained evidence of child pornography illegally. Now, I'm not in any way defending anyone who has child pornography. That is a reprehensible thing, and we all know it. That doesn't need to be said. We all know that obtaining or using or looking at child pornography intentionally is a very bad thing. I say intentionally because there's probably some poor sap out there who's done it accidentally and then gotten arrested for it. But anyway, child pornography evidence obtained via the FBI's Tor hack must be suppressed, says a federal judge in Iowa, according to Ars Technica. It's a very good news website. This federal judge in Iowa has ordered the suppression of child pornography evidence derived from an invalid warrant. The warrant was issued as part of a controversial government-sanctioned operation to hack Tor users. Out of nearly 200 such cases nationwide that involve the Tor hidden child porn site known as Playpen, very sick stuff, I know, the U.S. District Judge Robert Pratt is just the third to make such a ruling. He says any search conducted pursuant to such warrant is the equivalent of a warrantless search, says Judge Pratt in his 19-page order in United States versus Croghan. Now, the problem is the judge is not defending child pornography or people who obtain it. The judge is upholding the law. And you have to uphold the law in every case, or else you may as well just throw it away. That's the thing with federal law. That's the thing with state, county, city law. It doesn't matter. You have to uphold it if you're a judge because you're constitutionally sworn to, or else you may as well just throw the whole thing out. And fortunately, this judge, I have to say, seems like a pretty good judge. And a lot of judges are. Even some federal judges are pretty good guys because they realize that prosecutors are dirty, FBI agents are dirty, police are dirty. I don't mean all of them, but I mean some of them, and probably a lot of them in the case of the FBI. They're dirty. The IRS, very dirty. They'll bring up federal charges and just hope that the judge goes with it, or hope that the person in question will be lazy enough to not show up to his own hearings, or he'll be lazy enough to accept a plea deal when he shouldn't. And then if he didn't, the case may have been thrown out. There's all sorts of things which the FBI, the CIA, not the CIA, pardon me, but the FBI, the IRS will expect you to not know. So it's very important to know how the law works, because you can defend yourself if you know how the law works. Knowing how the legal justice system in America works can get you anywhere. It really can. Not anywhere, I should clarify, but most places. If you are, say, suspected of a crime and you know the police obtained that evidence without warrant, you can keep appealing. You need to bring that up. And if your lawyer doesn't want to go with that angle, find a new one, because your lawyer is there to protect you. Your lawyer is there to help you, supposedly. That's the thing. And we see a lot of people who go to jail or who unlawfully are detained or arrested or what have you because of made up charges or because of unlawfully obtained evidence, and they're just hoping that the person who was being accused, the defendant, will just bend over and say, well, I guess I'll take it, to put it in rough terms. And that happens a lot of the time. And these people have a right to defense. Now, someone who's accused of trafficking child pornography is not, how should I put this? He's accused. He's not convicted. So in the legal sense, he's innocent until proven guilty. The judge has to defend this man, or at least not defend him, but be unbiased towards him and recognize that if the police or the FBI or any agency does something which harms him, he's got to call that out. If they do something illegal, he has to throw out the evidence that was obtained illegally. That's just how it works in the American legal justice system. It's not defending child pornographers, it's defending everybody. And it sounds really messed up because this is a man who's accused of trafficking child pornography. Now, again, he's not convicted, so he's accused. He's a defendant. But someone who's even accused of that will appear to the public to be especially reprehensible, and probably rightfully so. But it's a fine line you have to walk, especially as a journalist, where you have to say, he's accused, he's not convicted yet. And the judge has to think in the same unbiased way. He's accused, he's not convicted, he has rights, and if they've been violated, I have to call them out. And that's what happened here. Earlier this year, several federal judges in Massachusetts and Oklahoma had made similar rulings and similarly tossed the relevant evidence. 13 other judges, meanwhile, have found that while the warrants to search the defendant's computers via the hacking tool were invalid, they did not take the extra step of ordering suppression of the evidence. The corresponding judges in the remainder of the cases have yet to rule on the warrant question. On all of these cases related to Playpen, which is this child pornography website on the deep web, a federal magistrate judge in Virginia issued a warrant that was then used to authorize the deployment of this tool known as Network Investigation Technique, or NIT, to locate the users. So a judge came out with a statement saying, if a defendant writes his IP address on a piece of paper and places it in a drawer in his home, there'd be no question that law enforcement would need a warrant to access that piece of paper, even accepting that the defendant had no reasonable expectation of privacy in the IP address itself. Here, defendants' IP addresses were stored on their computers in their homes rather than in a drawer. So he's saying it's essentially the same thing, but not. As ours was reporting before, investigators in early 2015 used the NIT to force Playpen users to cough up their actual IP addresses, which made tracking them down basically trivial, because you can get location information from IP addresses very easily, find out what ISP they're on, that's Internet Service Provider. The FBI can do this very easily, and just ask who they are, and then go serve a warrant. It's easy stuff. But they have to obtain that IP address in a legal manner. If they don't, it's a very big problem. And a lot of the time, or at least some of the time, they don't. And that's a very, very big problem. As a way to ensnare users, the FBI even took control of Playpen and ran it for 13 days before shutting it down. Now, hold on a second. Hold on just a second. That sentence in and of itself is pretty damning to me. As a way to ensnare its users. Now, remember, this is a child pornography website. As a way to ensnare its users, the FBI even took control of Playpen and ran it for 13 days before shutting it down. How does the FBI justify running a child pornography website, even if it is to capture people? I get that, but how do they justify, yes, we're running a child pornography website, but it's for the good of the American people? How do you go home and tell your wife about that one? I'd like to know. That's a story to tell the grandkids. Yes, little Bill, when I worked for the FBI, one time I ran a child pornography website so I could catch some bad people. I hate child pornographers as much as anyone. And child pornography is a disgusting thing, and exploiting children is a disgusting thing. So why is the FBI perpetrating it, is the question that we should ask. You can't just go and do things and expect the American people, or any people for that matter, to be okay with it as long as you put the badge of justice on it. Yes, I sold drugs to kids, but I caught kids who were buying drugs. So I guess it's okay to do that. You understand the problem here. It's like if the CIA set up this massive distribution ring of cocaine in order for the DEA to get more money to capture people who were selling cocaine. Oh wait, they actually did that. Never mind. So I guess we should just expect that of government. I guess maybe that's just the expectation we should have, is government's going to do the most reprehensible thing, and as long as it's badged or branded with justice, we'll just be expected to accept it. Like, why is no one protesting that part? There's so many protests going on in the world right now, and I think a lot of them are justified. But why is no one picketing in front of the FBI saying stop distributing child pornography? I've read before, police agencies and federal agencies have the largest repository of child pornography in the world because they have to hold on to it for evidence. I guess that's okay, though. Privacy-minded experts applauded Judge Pratt's reasoning, as they should, and the government should not have the ability, absent proper warrants, of course, to hack into people's computers. I have no problem with the FBI capturing child pornographers as long as they do it legally. That's the thing. This is not an argument about, well, I wish, they need to leave those child pornographers alone. I don't like child pornography, and I think it's a disgusting, reprehensible, immoral, ungodly thing. I don't have to say that because we all think that way, unless you're a child pornographer listening, in which case turn off your radio, please. But really, you have to do these things legally. You can't just be totalitarian about it and expect to get away with it. Fortunately, thank goodness for this judge, Judge Pratt, who called them out on their nonsense, which people have to do more often. More judges have to do this. And I'm very thankful that there actually are good judges out there who will make good calls. I'm just astounded by the FBI running a child pornography website. This is not the first time this has happened either, by the way. Back in the days of the Silk Road, the drug selling website, the FBI, sorry, not the FBI, but the DEA and the Secret Service ran it for a little while and sold drugs through it. They sold drugs to capture people who bought drugs. Wait a minute. You're selling the drugs and then you're arresting people for buying the drugs. It's like, I'm going to provide a service, but then I'm going to arrest people who buy that service. Maybe if you weren't there in the first place, they wouldn't have done it. Maybe. That's just a thought, just a theory. I know it's wacko, and I'm probably a conspiracy theorist for citing well-documented fact and thinking that government is bad for doing morally reprehensible things, which are very well documented. But I'm probably an alt-right conspiracy theorist who hates justice and hates children. Right? I mean, come on. You have to do things legally. The Fourth Amendment is there for a reason, and they swear to uphold it. They swear to uphold the Fourth Amendment. How do you get around with how do you get away with just ignoring it for the greater good, so-called? What is the greater good anyway? I guess it's what the FBI wants. It's what the feds want. That's America we live in right now, and we're going to tell ourselves it's not a police state, right? Come on. Theologically, I'm a police state preterist. I think that the police state's already here. It's not to come. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240. Colin Cowherd's up next.